Welcome one and all to Global Peace Studies for Sustainable Development in Africa. I thank you all for joining us, and also on behalf of the Africa Peace and Development Network, MAMA. I'm George Mutalemwa, moderating this webinar from Mwanza, Tanzania. The theme today is Bedo, Dano, and Wanachel, a peace-related Nilotic philosophy and slogan. The speaker is Professor Odoch Pido, a design professional, scholar, and educator who has served at the University of Nairobi. And so it's our pleasure having you. And of course, Odoch Pido has also been with us at this webinar. So it's a pleasure having you again, this time speaking to us. So, and I also welcome one and all again. Please join me in welcoming Professor Odoch Pido.
Thank you.
So,
thank you.
Yeah, please, you are welcome to start.
Hello all, wherever you are, and whatever the climate. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yeah, I'm speaking about Bedo, Dano, and Wanachel, which is a peace-related Pido philosophy and slogan. In this presentation, I'll try a matching of Ubuntu and Bedo, Dano, and I will present and discuss, explain Bedo, Dano and Wanachel. As I've already said before, this is about Bedo, Dano. It is being human. It's a Pido philosophy and peaceful coexistence, and as a people. In order to entrench this presentation in a cultural context, let me say this. Sorry, yeah, I'm going too fast. Let me say this. Pino ye noctimero, udia ye luao lutorboge. In English, it is wasp ye, few but beautiful. Elephant ye, the one who rustles tree leaves. This is a kind of anthem for my clan. It is in this clan that this presentation resides. It is a call for oneness, and it is a call that people use to face the vagaries of life and the universe. Bedo, Dano itself, its origin is deep in Luo-speaking cultures. A little bit about how we came to this presentation. Three things inspire this presentation. As you may remember, there was a webinar on the 5th of February 2025. In this seminar, Wanachel was mentioned, and we received a level of discussion. It is this mention that has brought us to where we are today. The second inspiration was a chapter I wrote in a book, Rethinking Sage Philosophy. The book was published in 2023 and edited by Kai Kresse and Oriare Nyarwath. The book was an outcome of a project called Sage Philosophy Project, which sought to examine the work of one of the philosophers and a scholar at the University of Nairobi by the name of Odera Ruka. So I drew on my chapter in that book in order to speak today. Finally, I was inspired by my upbringing, school education, and the following of Uganda politics from the 1970s up to the current time. When we were growing up, we used to hear a word, an expression in Acholi, which was in English, it is a never-ending marathon between Chua and Padibe. Chua and Padibe are clans within Acholi land in the northern part of Uganda. These communities used to fight each other constantly until one day they realized that one day when an external enemy comes, we shall all be finished because we will have no people to defend us. So they muted a meeting. A date was agreed, a rendezvous was located, and they all went for the meeting. Whereas Padibe people came with the idea of negotiating peace, the people of Chua had a different idea. They went with the idea of revenging the death that they have had in the past. So they hatched a plan. They said, we must go to the rendezvous before the meeting and bury our spears and shields at the rendezvous. So when we go for the meeting, everyone will be sitting with his spear on the right and the shield on the left, so that if it is necessary, you can always raise them. Number two, they develop a signal. The spokesman of Chua people was to speak with grass in his mouth. And the signal was that if the grass fell from his mouth, everybody should rise and war. That's what happened. And they killed pretty much everybody, the person who came for the meeting. They ran and ran, they couldn't run any further. But the moral of this is that the enmity has persisted. The enmity is like a never-ending marathon between Padibe clan and Wokan. That's one lesson which inspired my presentation today. The second inspiration, which is to do with the brother in Uganda, connects with my time when I was a student in secondary school. Don't know why it is moving. I attended the college Aloet in Eastern Uganda at Soroti. As we advanced to become senior students, we heard about lost counties of Bunyoro. The lost counties came about in this way. The king of Bunyoro, Kapulega Kitara, rebelled against the British. And in his rebellion, he had a severe war with the British and the people who supported them. Why did he rebel? Because he didn't want adults like him to be treated like children. So he couldn't take it. Now, the British recruited the help of Baganda in order to quash the rebellion. And indeed, the rebellion was quashed. But peace never existed. So once the British left the independence, the Banyoro took it out on the Baganda because they were now seen as symbols of the oppressor. And it took Obote one to resolve this problem. And he used not consensus, referendum as a way of resolving this problem. Final example, during Amin's murderous Uganda. As we all know, Amin has been presented in World Forum as the most ruthless leader of Uganda. And indeed, actually people feel like Amin killed a lot of their soldiers and ordinary people. So this became like a vendetta, like bad blood between the peoples of West Nile and the people of Acholi. Acholi land is directly north of Kampala. West Nile is more or less northwest of Kampala. But the two are adjacent districts, or were adjacent districts, are divided by the Nile. So West Nile is towards Congo, and Acholi land is towards Karamoja and towards Kenya, if you look at the Nile from that point of view. When Tito came to power, though for a brief time, he decided that there should be a peace negotiation and a peace treaty between the peoples of West Nile and the peoples of Acholi. This he did through the traditional process. If anybody is interested, I can discuss that during question time. But peace was achieved between the peoples of the two districts. These were the parts which inspired my presentation today. If you look at the map of Uganda, there is a white circle, white to the top. That will give you the location, which I described as the umbilical cord of this presentation. And if you look to the middle of the slide, it is the picture of the book that I was talking about. Now, I cannot speak about methodology. There's not much to talk about because I really did not have enough time to scholarly and methodologically look at what I'm presenting today. But one could say that I did some reflection, I did some discussions with people around me, including my wife, and I made an analysis. These were the question methodologies that brought my presentation to fruition. Now, in terms of objective, I wanted simply to add to efforts towards peace in Africa and the world. And by no means did I want to belittle any Africa's sage philosophy. Now, let me make a little bit of a comparison between Ubuntu and Bedo. First, Ubuntu is a Bantu philosophy. I know that Bantu is a much more complex community than single-handed. It is like saying Africa is complex. It is saying the obvious. So Bantu are very complicated, but it seems that the Bantu philosophy, which apparently started in South Africa, enveloped the entire community in Africa, including Eastern Africa. It is about humanity and to others. And indeed, it is a very well-researched and published philosophy. And a lot of people speak about it in academic fora. Its slogan is, I am because you are because we are. On the other hand, Dano is a Paluo philosophy. Originally, if you remember the discussion we had, we were talking about Nilotic. The Paluo is only a part of Nilotic. I chose to use Paluo because I do not have evidence, scholarly evidence, to show me that this is widespread amongst all Nilotic speakers. So I was afraid to use Nilotic. Instead, I use Paluo, which is a part of my community, and I'm confident it exists in the Paluo community. It is about being human. Its slogan is Wanachel. We are one in body, spirit, and action. The two philosophies, Ubuntu and Bedo Dano, seem to concur in terms of core values. The core values have to do with compassion, respect, solidarity, and humanness. If you look at the picture of Ubuntu, representing Ubuntu on the right-hand side, it seems very, very possible to use it for Wanachel at the same time. Now, there are other philosophies in East Africa. Many of them have not yet been studied and documented. The ones which have come to the surface because of political reasons and writings, I induce only three: Umoja, Ujamaa, and Harambee. Umoja, directly translated is oneness. It emphasizes togetherness for the family and the community, reflecting a belief that strength stems from unity. Its roots are in African philosophy of collectivism. Ujamaa, on the other hand, is familyhood. It's greatly based in Tanzania. And if you remember Nyerere, at the time I was young, Nyerere was probably at its peak. And we loved it, the idea of Ujamaa. It is a philosophy that means familyhood or brotherhood. It deeply entrenches justice, equality, via community, mutual respect, reciprocation, and the responsibility of cooperating for the common good of all. Harambee, on the other hand, seems to have been a Kenyan kind of philosophy, political philosophy. It means pull together. It was brought to light by the first president of Kenyan country, Jomo Kenyatta. Its origin apparently is India. People say it means pull together, and it's an Indian expression. Whether this is true or not, it is an example that we in Kenya have now adopted as a part of our community. I now want to say something brief about Paluo and the other Nilotics before I engage into the primary discussions of this presentation. If you look on the left, there are two pictures. They seem to symbolize, they seem to say that the Nilotics have been around for a long time, one. They also seem to say that Nilotics must have lived in many different parts of Africa before what we now consider their geographic representation. The top picture on the extreme left of that top picture, if you look at that carefully, you will see men taking offerings to the king. But how are they dressed? They are dressed. The headdress is buffooned. Is someone talking? George?
Sorry, we have muted them. It's good.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Go ahead, please.
This buffoon is what connects them to the present Nile Nilotics in Eastern Africa, which is in the bottom picture. The bottom picture represents a Turkana bridegroom and his brothers. They are wearing the same type of buffoon, and they are Nilotics. The other one is a picture that represents activities of 1300 BCE tomb of Oi, while the lower one are just pictures that my wife took in 1986 when she went to the wedding of the guy in the center. The map in the middle is generally gray with the red parts. The red part concerns my presentation today. The gray part is not so important. Let me start with the gray part. When you look at the map of Africa, I would like to say that Nilotics can be found in West Africa, Nigeria, Mali, Burkina Faso, and possibly Togo, Senegal. And then they are also found in Central Africa, namely Chad, Democratic Republic of Congo, and in Cameroon. Now, in Eastern Africa, which is my concern for today, Nilotes are found in the Sudan, Ethiopia, Uganda, Kenya, and Tanzania. I have already mentioned DRC. I've already mentioned Central African Republic. I've already mentioned Chad. It is this particular group of Nilotes that have Paluo speakers. And the Paluo speakers can also be found in DRC, in Central African Republic, and Chad. George, my map is not very clear. People are in it. Can I move it a little bit to the left so that you can you see my map?
Yes, I can see it. It's clear. It's clear to me. Yes.
Okay, then let me just speak from it.
All
now,
right.
The migration is what brought all of us, Paluo speakers, into this region of Africa. Par El Gazelle in Sudan is often viewed as the epicenter of the migration. A part of the group went north, while the other part went west into Chad, DRC, and so on and so on. The other part went east into Ethiopia. And this is the Gambela. Gambela seems to have its origin in one of the expressions, local languages, which we share with the people in Gambela. To be specific, it is said to be Gambela, which means, please take my luggage of millet corn. And that has become their name. So the bulk of the people came up the Nile to around Victoria and coming around Victoria into present Kenya and Tanzania. I will now concentrate on what I was calling the umbilical cord of my presentation. Now, let me go to Wanachel. In terms of analysis, Wanachel starts on an, which is I. One is the plural of I, and a chel is like the numeral 1. In traditional mathematics, we base ourselves on 5. You count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Then you go to 5 plus 1 until you get to 5 plus 4, and then 10. 10 is apart. But for purpose of this presentation, Achel is 1. So Wanachel has its origin in I, which is me, and the plural 1, Achel, Wanachel. And I used it as one word, though there are actually 2 words there. How do we get to Wanachel? Wanachel can be reached through kinship, marriage, affinal, and offsprings on sanguinal. From this basic, we go to the extended family, we go to the clan, and then we can reach a tribe. We can also get to One, through commitment by class, upper class, middle class, and I don't know whether I should use the word lower class. We also get to oneness through education, dividing us into educated and those who are not educated. We can get to oneness through profession and professional activities like engineering, doctors, artists, surveyors, and so on and so on. We also get to oneness through party politics, which is an introduction to East Africa, and religion, as it were. Now, with this oneness in mind, I want to speak on a few thoughts on Wanachel that tend to be pro-peace or anti-peace. I start with pro-peace. Doti Iweka, in English, it is equal access to things that are inexhaustible. So it is like, let me once you are done, so that it is my turn to have it and you don't say no. The second one, which comes from the same thinking, Bokmarom, it is to share equitably. Is to share equitably. And finally, in terms of the examples, I can find there are minimal examples, is Tamanim, consider the future. Don't spoil for the people whose time have not yet come and who are actually not here. This is Tamanim, think of the future. And without having to exhaust all the examples, let me speak about some of the thoughts that tend to be anti-peace. One of them is Ankena, I only. The other one is Wankena, we only. And finally, you, him, are, and those people only. The idea of only is what is often anti-peace. And as you may know, in this region of Africa, the communities that come to power in terms of elections and whatever it is, tend to think in these anti-peace kind of ways. I now come to Dano, and I will try to explain it. I will try to discuss it, and I will try to give examples. I will start by giving the original blueprint of Dano. I should have used the word Dano, living like human or being human. But since this work is still in progress, I probably will one day change my presentation to Dano. Dano means not Bedo. Bedo means living like a dog, living under human dignity. That is Bedo. Dano also means not Bedo Winyo. Winyo is living like a bird. What is the significance of a bird here? The significance of a bird is a representation of someone who creates trouble for others and runs away. The trouble does not catch him. The other one is Bedo Ukuru. Ukuru is a maggot which stays in dust. It keeps sucking human blood, but there is nothing you can do with it. You can only kill it. You can't eat it. And it's very, very slimy. You cannot find it easily. The other one is Bedabatabach, which means you are not of fixed abode. Nobody knows about you. Today you are this color, the other one you are, the next day you are this color, the following day you are of a different color. You are not fixed. No one can place you. And finally, Bedolik. Bedolik is a bat, either fruit bats or whatever bats there. We all know that Ulik rests, a bat rests with the head upside, looking down. There are many reasons, good reasons for this. But in this case of peace, it is about looking at things upside down. These are my own analysis of Bedo. Now, from this type of Bedo, this explanation, we could now reword our Wanachel. It means we are one since we share common thought, belief, and good practice. And all that is in the process of peaceful coexistence as a people. Now, in this tradition, which I have explained to you, there are many manifestations, expressions of Bedo. I cannot exhaust it, but for now, I can only give you a few examples. One of them is manifestation. One of them is Dako Yualkinyeke. It's about cooperation. It means a woman gives birth with the help of four wives. The other one is Woro Kimolo Loyolonyo. It's about decency. It means respect and restraint beats wealth. La chan kwa kilwere. No, la chan teru welone. It is about responsibility. And common and I think I cannot see the other one very well. So that even a poor person can entertain his visitor. The final one is Adwot Keoda, meaning power to and dignity for all. In my house, I'm a chief. The picture on the left-hand side, if I may say so, is one of a Karamojong head dress. It is not my picture. I found it as a part of museum collection. This is not often how it is worn. So it is on a pedestal instead of on a head. I brought it here to say that we, the actualists, see the Karamojong as our raiding partners. They raid us, we also raid them. But in this raid, conflicts often ensue and people die in the process. Now, it is this concept of permanent partnership in enmity that is anti-peace. They are, of course, co-founders of Bedo. In the local expression, it refers to contempt, abuse, disrespect, and killing without valid reasons. Those can destabilize and undermine peaceful coexistence. In addition, there is chest thumping, which is more or less like an addiction to violence and militarism. And as I had said before, we only is one of the co-founders of Bedo. It's a sense of entitlement. You feel like you are entitled to the resources of a nation simply because you are now in the political power. There was a presentation, I think, last week when I said I might mention something on Sudan, maybe this is the time to say it. The sense of entitlement of one community in Sudan is probably the fundamental reason why there has always been disturbances in Southern Sudan. That's what I think. So I will use this slide to mention that. Now, is a description of how people look at others. It refers to prejudice. It's just looking at people, viewing people with prejudice. Track outcome is the final one. It's biased judgment. The picture on the right-hand side, there are two pictures. One which is on the top, and it's about termite. It's about the good things of life, but prejudice sometimes prevents people from eating termites. And the lower one is about bola. It's a traditional dance. It's about collective performance and generating joy for everyone. By way of conclusion, I want to say that in this presentation, I tried to add Bedo Dano to Ubuntu and other African peace-related philosophies. I also tried to embed Dano to a historical, cultural, and social context. And I tried to analyze both Bedo Dano and explain Bedo Dano being human, and also analyze and explain Wanachel. We are one in spirit, body, and action. By way of, I also tried to give examples of co-founders of Bedo Dano, peaceful coexistence. I hope this presentation had to research and presentations on peace-related philosophies in Africa and the overall search for peace in Africa and the world. I also hope that I helped to initiate looking at art, music, theater, and other creative arts as probable tools to the search and attainment of peace in the world. Asante sana, and a big thank you. Can I leave you with one word here? Can philosophy bring peace? And if yes, how can it work successfully? Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Odoch Pido, for this wonderful presentation. I'm sure we've learned also a new words, but also have understood more about the Bedo Dano philosophy, the Wanachel, and yes, being human. And I think this question in front of us is a nice one for us to start the discussion. So how can philosophy bring peace? Can philosophy bring peace? If yes, how can it work successfully? It's a nice question, isn't it? So I would like to welcome now people on board to ask questions, make comments, respond to your wonderful talk. You may actually stop sharing the screen so that we can also see each other.
Okay.
Thank you. So as you end the slide share, sharing the screen, please click to exit, end of slideshow.
Yeah, I'm trying to, but it is not working.
Okay. I see.
Okay, I got it. I got it.
Okay, great. Wonderful. Wonderful. And so who would like to begin? Somebody's asking for if you can share the presentation. We can do that for sure, I believe, Odoch.
Yes, I can.
Yeah, we'll do that. Send that by email. Thank you for sending us your email address. So I'll start with Evelyn and then Richard. Evelyn, please go ahead. You are muted.
Thank you for that very enlightening presentation. I wonder if you could talk a little bit about how do you reconcile the concept of raiding partners, which includes killing each other, and Dano.
Thank you. George, do I answer now or I wait for more?
Please, you may answer.
Yeah.
Right.
Let me explain a little bit about raiding partners. And maybe align it with Dano. There are rules in this partnership. Yes, you know your enemy is out there or in this direction, but you know that when you go to raid, you don't kill. Those are one of the rules. And when you raid them, you don't kill them. And when they raid you, they don't kill you. So the rules, the regulation governing raid is a part of Dano. Okay? It's a part of living together, sharing. You know, I don't want to use the word sharing because it might not make economic sense, but I'm obliged to use that. It is sharing wealth without having to kill one another. So you don't kill. Supposing it happens, you pay compensation. And you have these traditional ways of creating peace. We call it, what is it in English? Maruput, but is drinking a concoction for peace. So if you kill a Karamojong, they will come and say, you killed our person, we need to make peace and return to normalcy. So you carry out that process and then you become the state of Bedo. But you still raid. You raid without killing people. So if you take like 100 animals from the Karamojong, you take care of them, they become 150. The Karamojong will come and raid. They will not take everything. They will leave you with something. So it's like a partnership in that. Okay? So when not well understood, not well used, and then degenerate into conflicts that will be forever. You cannot resolve it. So that is my explanation. There was another something that I missed that you said, was it partnership in raid? And the other one was what? Hello? Hello?
Yes, we hear you.
What was the other one?
I think, was it trying to understand whether the word was raid or rape? No? So it's raid. isn't it? That we're talking about
the
raiding.
going and taking animals from one community is what I'm referring to. That is the description of raiding partners.
Right.
Yes.
Excellent. Excellent. So if there will be another question, I'm sure it will be asked. Richard, please.
Good afternoon. To be with you once again. I am thinking about the question in Professor's conclusion. Can philosophy bring peace? Yes. We cannot refute philosophy not bringing peace, or philosophy bringing peace. We cannot battle it at all. It's part of the activity that we go through to develop peace. It helps in critical thinking, understanding different perspectives, fostering dialogue, and then help foundate the peaceful world that we want. So philosophy can bring peace. Thank you.
I hope that was clear. And
No. George, it was breaking. I don't know whether you heard it. Can you repeat a little bit?
Maybe what you can do, Richard, if you can just put it in writing, like in chat, I think it should be easier that way. Yes, please.
Okay. I'll do it.
Great. Thank you.
Let me wait for it in chat, then I can have a look.
Okay, great. Hannah Bula, you are welcome. Thank you for joining us.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, the moderator. Yeah, so I have a question for Prof. And this is about philosophy and peace, using the concept of Bedo. Now, my question is, what can academia play when it comes to peace using his concept of Bedo, particularly taking cognizance that right now we have war in DRC Congo and in South Sudan. So how can you apply this concept of Bedo in peace and reconciliation? Thank you.
Odoch, did you get the question?
Yes, I did.
Okay, please.
Thank you. Academia and political leadership are practically almost always not in tune. So I really don't know whether philosophy, as touted by academics, can be adopted by politicians. Let me just be hypothetical about it. If we take DRC as the current example, if the warring parties were to say that we should share equitably, there would have been less of the struggle, because I think the DRC war is about struggle for resources. That's my opinion. It might be different from person to person, but I think that's the primary reason for the war in DRC. The other one is feud and fear that something will happen to you and you might not get what you want to get. Now, if we were to say, look, let us share whatever we have equitably and let us live in peace, I don't think there would have been war in either DRC or in Sudan or anywhere else in Africa for that matter. But somehow it seems to be very, very difficult for political leaders to come to what we in academics would like to have as creating peace. The other one is to think of it as perhaps and only perhaps we in academics should strive to get an opportunity to be a part of decision making. Unfortunately, many of the academics that I've seen are involved in decision making tend to climb towards the political side and forget that once they were in academics and now it is time to behave like they used to behave in academics. So tying academics to political leadership has been, for me, a big problem. And by the way, for the sake of this, philosophy is not my bread and butter, meaning it's not my mainstay. I have participated in political meetings, discussions, and I've even published quite a few papers in political, philosophical publications. But big politicians have a philosophy. And if I use Nyerere as a case, Nyerere helped, I don't know whether this is true, Nyerere probably helped Tanzania to become a very, very peaceful country. And in this region of East Africa, we can cite Tanzania as a country that has lived in relative peace since independence. Was it in 1964?
Yes.
Since independence in
1961. 61.
Okay. So since independence in 1961. So one could say that, yes, using the case of Tanzania, perhaps and only perhaps there's hope for philosophy. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. And Janet, you're welcome.
Thank you, George. Thank you for this. Really, I learned so much from your presentation, and I really love when things that become cliches like Ubuntu, everyone just says Ubuntu, but you take this idea and bring your area, clan, language perspective to it, and you elaborate it. And I think that's one thing that philosophy helps us do. It helps us ask questions and look deeper at our assumptions and beliefs that are underneath. If you believe that you can always win, then your relationships will suffer. If you believe in connecting and valuing, stepping back and letting everyone have their say, they're believing that everyone deserves respect and has inherent dignity, then that's an assumption that can help. But I have to say, not too well, sorry. I have to say that we have to think of a kind of spectrum. I like how you put political thinking next to philosophical thinking, because I think that philosophical thinking is stepping back, taking perspective, or digging deeper into our assumptions. And it's guided by values and principles like the ones you named in, I, we, togetherness, collectivity. You elaborated it so nicely. And political thinking is, you could say, pragmatic, because sometimes things have to be done and decided that are, not the ideal. You have to figure out how to solve problems, and it might not be the ideal. And then on the other hand, it may include domination. I'm going to take what I want. And, you know, I can do it over you. I can overcome you. And so there's no dignity and relational care and concern, compassion and love in that. So pragmatic problem solving can move over into domination, extraction, etc. And so I think we can think about all that, and we share our dialogic thinking, and that really helps us. So that's my attempt to clarify, and from my perspective. And I just want to ask some more about traditional peacemaking, like you described early on, that there would be, well, I'm just going to call them circles, or, you know, some ways of coming together to work on peace. And do you have some more examples of that for us?
Thank you. Yes, there are many examples, but let me elaborate on the one that has been used.
Yes, please. Thank you.
Can I answer? Thank you very much for making me feel good. I feel like I've said something. But let me say a little bit about the process that we in our community use frequently, which is Oput. Oput is a plant. The root of that plant is central to bringing back peace where peace has been broken. It's a means of resolving conflict. In terms of process, this is what happens. Elders from both parties, the parties which have been offended, and in fact, let me start by saying, supposing someone was killed, you can use the word murder or manslaughter, whichever one, but somebody has died and was killed by another. The people, the clan, the elders from the clan of the person who killed the other one, together with the elders of the clan that belongs to the person who was killed, meet and agree that what has happened is bad and that there is need to address that which is bad. Then they call the person who killed the other one into what I would call perhaps a court of elders and ask him to address them and admit that he killed the person and that he believes what he did was wrong. Once that has happened, then a bigger party is invited, more people are invited from both sides, and all of them agree that this is what happened, and what happened is bad, and we must now resolve this and bring the conflict to a close. Then the physical process starts. You pay compensation, and there's a standard compensation. For example, if you kill a person, you pay with a calf, you pay a cow, you pay an animal. That is compensation. You might pay more, but at least one. Once you have made the payment, then the experts in Mapaput now meet and they start the process. You drink the concoction, and that brings it to an end. And forever, you don't go back to the badness where you have been. What often spoils this process is lack of admission. People not admitting they have actually done wrong. They might say it by mouth, but inside they feel like they have actually not done anything wrong. That spoils the meaning of building this peace or making peace return. The other one which spoils this kind of meeting is commitment of all parties. When you are not committed, this peace can never be done. Finally, telling lies, having tricks, trying to trap your opponent or the other side. Those are the sort of things that do not bring peace. And when I say this, there are many examples, and perhaps the examples can wait for another day. I remember the peace process in Southern Sudan between Uganda and LRA failed because of what I said. And there might be many other examples that I can call to this meeting if there is time. Thank you. Now, in a less kind of dramatic situation where death is not necessarily the case, can I use the word taboo? Because the breaking of a taboo can dislodge peaceful coexistence, even within the same clan. Cleansing, and I may not go into all those details. Cleansing, a system of cleansing is often called upon to correct the offense and bring peace to the community. And I think those two examples can help with that. But if there is need, where I can write up something and we can connect later and let you have it.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Odoch. Do you want to say something, Janet?
I want to follow up because I really, really appreciate your examples. And I've read and tried to learn about the integration of child soldiers. And I don't know if your area, your clan has experience with that. But I guess child soldiers are engaged by the other adults and themselves in all kinds of breaking of taboos. And so then bringing them back into the village or clan is so difficult, as I understand. Do you have something from your presentation or your ideas to explain about that?
Yeah, this is my idea. It is probably not yet well thought out, but for purposes of this meeting, I think the question of child soldiers will not be resolved until the people who are doing it are committed. It's not integrating child soldiers simply because that is your work. No, it's not enough to say it is my work. It is not even for, say, political reasons to show off to the rest of the world that you are doing a favor. So the commitment must be a lot deeper than simply work and showing to people that you are doing something kind to others. Number three, the reason that produced child soldiers must first be removed before the child soldiers can be integrated. Those are my views.
Thank you so much. And there is a comment here in chat from Richard. and is responding to your question on the connection between philosophy and peace, and he's saying philosophy supports peace building. We can't refute that fact at all. Philosophy promotes critical thinking, ethical reasoning, understanding different perspectives, and fostering dialogue, which helps us resolve conflicts. And seems I've lost my line. Sorry. So philosophy can bring peace. That's how he concludes this.
Thank you.
Right. Thank you also for that. I'm just looking around for more hands here. And I would like also to say that I liked the way you put together the connection, how peace, how Bedo, Dano, and Ubuntu, relate, how, so comparable they are. And I was trying to figure out whether there are any differences that you could maybe find out between the two. They are just the one and the same.
Just a minute.
All right.
I'm opening that particular so that it's easy for me to go to that slide straight away.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
Great.
Now, yes, I have the slide now before me. In that slide, I tried to match the two and also compare the two. Now you can ask your question. You are wondering if there are any more differences that I can cite.
Right.
Is that correct?
Yes, please.
I don't like to say this because it means that, you see, we are so many peoples in Africa. And it is not possible that all our philosophies can be applicable in building peace, unless we synchronize them into some sort of one or find a common thread that we can now use. Like I tried to find a common thread between Ubuntu and Bedo. If I try to make more differences than just origin, I will now go into petty differences. But let me go ahead just to give an example. You see, Bedo has been polished over the years, and it is not just 1 year, over many, many years, and has been reshaped and changed and rechanged, remodeled to make it suitable for this particular community. I believe that this is what happened to Ubuntu, especially where it was born and raised. I know that a Muntu speaker is a Muntu speaker, and they will pretty much understand each language, especially in East Africa. And George, you know this probably, that, for example, Uganda in Uganda can come and just speak to Eluya in Western Kenya, and they would understand each other very, very freely. And I believe that the Chaga of Tanzania would possibly also just come to Kenya and find the people of Meru, and they would probably speak more or less the same language as it were. So in this case, yes, we can do it. But apart from petty differences like where they were raised and peculiarities of that culture, where they can be applied in finesse is probably the only difference that I can raise at this particular time. But like I said before, this is day one. I'm really looking at this critically. Maybe in a few days' time, I might be able to come up with some differences. But if anybody sees differences, apart from the petty things that I don't want to get into, I don't mind seeing those differences. And by the way, for purposes of not necessarily extending this, but just informing the meeting. It is critical thinking, especially beneficial critical thinking, is hardly the quality of many of the leaders we have today. In the past, yes. In the past, yes, we could get a few examples, both in West Africa, in Africa. We can think of, like I said, Nyerere. We can think of Kenyatta. We can think of Obote for that matter, though he was disgraced eventually. But they had perhaps critical thinking, which was minding the welfare of people in their countries. But today, critical thinking, I think, is a big problem for many of those who already have power. I think power overrides all this critical thinking. So I would leave it to this, George, and I will respond at a different time if I can. But most of the attitude now is me, myself, and my stomach, and the rest are up to them to survive.
All right, thank you so much, Odoch, for that response. Now I'll turn to Richard again. Richard?
Yes, sir. I was trying to ask that he made mention of admission once guilt become a problem in that context. And I would want to know what comparing traditional style of peace building to maybe political or academic style of peace building, which one do you think is effective, or which one brings quick result? And then, yes, that is a small question that I want. Comparing traditional to the other contemporary style of building peace, which one looks more effective and can build peace across vast area? Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Richard. Odoch, would you like to respond to that?
I will try, but if I have not understood the question, please forgive me. I think you are trying to find out if which of the two is more effective. The more contemporary approaches to peace building and peace process, or is it the more traditional system? I guess this is the opinion you are looking for from me. Am I correct?
Yes.
Yes, please. Yes.
Yeah. Again, I will return to what I have experienced, and therefore what I know at this particular point in time. There's no secondary or lateral information that I have. Today's peace process is very, very similar to the example I gave earlier on of the lost counties, where if you don't like something, instead of coming and saying, look, what don't you like about it? Can we make it work? Is there something else we can do to make it work for you? They now say, look, I'm the one who is in charge. you either do it my way or I'll deal with you. This is the more contemporary approaches to peace. I hate to give examples that are sometimes very current because I don't have relevant information. So I go back to the earlier kind of examples. When peace was muted between government forces in Uganda and Lord Resistance Army, I was on my way going home, and people went for that meeting. And people went. I didn't go because I wasn't sure of my steps. What I heard happen during the meeting is that when Kony came to the meeting, government soldiers just said, you know, you are under arrest. We are going to arrest you because you have killed so many people. So we are taking you to jail. So he told them, you know, I'm not going to be arrested. So the fight broke out again. Lack of trust, in my opinion, is what made it fail. Some chest thumping, like, you know, who are you? You are nothing. My chest is bigger than yours. And I think that is the more modern ways of looking at things, that those who don't have should not have, including power. Those who do not have it should not have power. Okay? In the traditional sense, this is the more traditional approach. If Kony and somebody else were warring parties, they would meet and say, my brother, you know, we have fought enough. Let us end this. They would come to some understanding, an agreement that what is going on must end. You give, the other one gives. You give, the other one gives. In the end, you come to discuss, you come to Maraput, like it's what I said. So for me, the more traditional method could be more effective if it were given a chance. And I've given you the example. Yeah. A lot of people came back very disappointed at the ways the government behaved towards bringing peace to their region by looking at the other one, looking at Kony as a minor, as somebody of no consequence, as somebody without power. Do I give you an example? Or you are not yet satisfied with my...
It's okay. I'm okay with it.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
All right, excellent. Thank you. Evelyn, please.
Thank you very much. First of all, I want to just point out a beautiful typo in the presentation, and that is in your slide on Wanachel explained. Instead of kinship, you had put kindship, which I think is a beautiful expression. So I'm going to use that.
Thank you. I will correct the slides before I eventually send it to George for distribution.
But I'm not pointing it out for it to be corrected. I'm thanking you for that beautiful expression.
Oh, so it is kindship instead of kinship.
That's
okay,
right.
Thank you. But I'll still correct it so that it is proper. Eh? Yeah, it's proper. Thank you.
And I do have a question following on from my earlier question where I said, how do you reconcile Bedo Dano with raiding partners? And my question would be, how do you reconcile it with those who are not raiding partners? And this aligns a bit with Richard's question, which is, how does it spread more widely beyond the clan and kinship?
I'm not sure I understood your question because it seems, how does the traditional system of peace process work for partners who are not raiding each other. Is that correct?
I'm trying to understand. I'm trying to understand, Bedo Dano, how deeply it is anchored in the clan, and the extent to, or in the partners, if you like, and how you extend it beyond the partners.
Yeah, thank you.
Traditionally, you've explained very well in the modern context, and I'm just trying to understand it in the traditional context.
Bedo Dano is alive and thriving beyond the clan, which I spoke about.
Okay.
It is the entire actually community and beyond. Amongst the Luo in Kenya, where I have now lived for the last 40, 50 years, the concept of Bedo Dano is very much alive. So it is already beyond the clan that I represented. I do not want to be too sure, but it seems like it might be alive in the communities that speak Luo in Tanzania, in Ethiopia, in DRC, in Central African Republic, and in Chad, and in Sudan. So I think in terms of spread, and as a philosophy, is well beyond the small confine that I presented today. But I just wanted to be sure where I stood. So I use a very small clan, which is my clan, because I know it like the back of my hand.
Right.
Sorry.
Sorry.
I can hear you. Just add.
I made a mistake by using the word clan. So it would be, beyond the Luo, beyond the Karamoja, just beyond the traditional oneness.
Yes.
How does it spread?
I can only give examples from the people that I know.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Thank you.
If I give two examples of the people I know, then perhaps we can say we need more work, more studies to see where else they would possibly be. I will give the example of Teso, because I went to school in Teso, so I have a good understanding of the community. Teso, there are people who live in eastern part of Uganda, close to the Kenya border. In fact, they border Kenya in some parts. These people also believe in Bedo Dano. The expression, the local verb, idioms that they use may not be what I'm using, but their sense of being human is common to what I've just said. And that's a community which is Nilotic community, but not necessarily the community that I'm talking about, that I gave as an example. I already gave an example of the Karamojong. Can I now give a different example? I give the example of Madi. Madi is west of Acholi district. Often they were beyond the Nile. I know Madi because of the people I've lived with, also of Madi origin. They also believe in living like people. In fact, their method of conflict resolution is very, very similar to ours in the terms of people admitting and believing that and agreeing that something must be done and actually doing something to correct it. So with those two examples, I think I can say it only needs more work, more studies, and scholars can do that. Younger ones preferably, because some of us are now too old. Younger scholars preferably to say, this concept, this philosophy is here, but it is also in this place. It might be called by a different name, but it is the same philosophy. Do I answer your question?
Thank you very much.
My Atesot is gone because I used to speak Atesot when I was young. I cannot speak Atesot now, so I cannot translate this into Atesot. I can also not translate this into Mari because I never spoke Mari very well, but I lived with them long enough to understand this as working in their communities as well.
All right, now there is one question from in chat here from Jerome, and he's asking, how can you explain how Ubuntu can assist in the promotion or advocacy of peace education, especially in a world, even an African continent that is now so fractured? And probably we could add Beno Dano there, you know, plus Ubuntu. How can it assist today in a peace building, peace education?
Colleague, that's a question which I am hard-pressed to answer. Hard-pressed to answer because my level of knowledge in peace education is, at this particular point in time, not enough for me to make a comparison. My knowledge of Ubuntu is not experiential. It's not based on experiences. It is based on reading. It is based on reading what other people have said, including people who wrote PhDs on Ubuntu. Not for this particular presentation, but at the time when I was looking at Ubuntu as one African way of, one African philosophy of togetherness. And in fact, that's how we came with this idea of Bedo and Wanachel, because of reading. So my knowledge of Ubuntu is based on reading. It's not on life experience. It's talking to people, people telling me, asking questions and hearing answers. So I really cannot do too much with Ubuntu. But let me take a shot with mine as Bedo. I believe that peace education's main goal is to generate expertise that are likely to create peace in this continent, or even in this region of East Africa. I believe, given that might be the primary reason, then I can now try to address the question. You know, the idea of peace, as we learned and as young, and starting from kinship, Bedo what living as relatives, we learned when we were very, very young. You are taught to live like relatives. When you live like relatives, you don't fight. You discuss conflict. You agree. You resolve conflict, but not by fighting. That's a lesson we learned when we were very young. Number two, you don't deprive your sibling of whatever is brought for you to share. You share equitably. So, and then eventually, you did not insult. You did not look down on your sibling. You don't think, oh, you know, you're no good, you are useless. That kind of language you don't use for your young people. So if I were to use my experience, and if I were to say the goal of peace education is to generate expertise that will contribute to the bringing of peace in troubled areas, that is, I would start with those basic tenets that can bring peace within a small community, and that can be magnified to a bigger kind of community. This would be my way of looking at it. Forgive me because my knowledge of peace education is very small, and my knowledge of Ubuntu is also very small. It is just reading. I have no experience, but the area which I presented today, I think I have sizable experience, and I've given it enough thought. So I answered from that point of view.
Yeah, thank you so much indeed, Odoch Pido, for this wonderful presentation. We have certainly learned a lot from you, and we're going to read your writing when it's done. And we thank you also for sharing this presentation. I'm sure you'll send it to me when it's done. And so I thank everybody also on board for your contributions, for participation. It's always excellent having you around. We thank you for your time, and we wish you all the best. So we're going to meet next Wednesday. Thank you so much indeed, and goodbye.
Thank you for listening.
Thanks.